Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Xtra Bytes. And if you are first time visiting our Xtra Bytes series or Exploring that channel, let me just give you a brief insight into it. When lockdown started, we started thinking that what do we do now, and in terms of even producing content and regarding workshops and all, so everything had come to a screeching halt. And the best thing that we thought that we could do is to give it back to the photography fraternity that has given us so much in past. And that is how the idea of Xtra Bytes started. So Xtra Byte basically is a series where we try and bring you the unheard stories and the unseen bytes from photographers' life or photographers' photography journey, their challenges, their kind of wins that they have done, the way they have moved across from being nothing, from a rank beginner to from where they are right now. And I think that is quite inspirational. Every story has been inspirational. And today we are already into our episode number 41. And we have a wonderful wedding photographer with us, Neeta Shankar. She's from Bangalore. So welcome, Neeta, and thank you for accepting the invite to join us on this Xtra Byte series. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse, for having me over. It's a great experience. I'm sure it'll be a really nice session, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. We all are, I think. And so let me just, guys, give you a brief introduction about Neeta. Personally, I have known Neeta from almost now 7 years. Am I right?
2014, yes, yeah. So
that was the first time we met, and since then we've stayed in touch, and I've seen her phenomenal growth. Not that she was not good that time. We met only because she was extremely highly talented, and but her growth has been phenomenal, and I'm sure that Neeta herself will agree to that. And her fans are certainly going to agree to that. Now, just a brief background, but more she will share, that she was an IT professional for 5 years, and then suddenly, somewhere around 2012, she decided to follow her creative vision and make it a reality. And that is how I think Neeta Shankar Photography as an organization or as a venture or as a name that in photography field has took birth, and then it started making strides. It were not baby steps, they were strides, and she has in no time she created a niche for herself. And today she's not only a wedding photographer, she's also a lifestyle photographer, she's a creative director, she's an entrepreneur, she is a mentor, she is a brand ambassador with Nikon and Godox. She's featured in top 100 worldwide, so top 100 list of most influential photographers, and probably one of the very few getting featured from India. Am I right, Neeta?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So without really getting into uh, start getting to talk too much about her. I think it's the best thing is to let her talk, let her speak about her journey. So, Neeta, my
Yeah.
first question would be that uh, you were an IT professional, and anybody who's an IT professional, and I know many, and you would also have your friends that people start getting into that coziness and that big fat packages and doing nothing, going to the office and having a large team and so on and so forth. At least that is what I know about. So how did you think of actually leaving all that and get into photography?
Yeah, okay. First of all, Jesse, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. That was like a really, detailed introduction. So, yeah, so to answer your question, you are right. Like, I did work in the corporate world for like around 5 years, and it was particularly a difficult decision for me to like switch from the corporate world to wedding photography, because I kept thinking, how would it go, whether I'd have continuous stream of work, whether it would be, possible to sustain a lifestyle, the same kind of lifestyle that I had on, just income from wedding photography. I had all these questions because, like you said, all IT professionals are kind of used to having a lot of, I mean, having a big pay package and, secure, kind of, secure finances and everything. Uh, but yeah, but there is always a point in every artist's life where one has to decide whether, one has to decide whether you want to take your art seriously and do something about it, or you will continue to, do it as a hobby. So I think I was at that point, I was at that juncture, and I had to like decide. So it was a difficult decision for me, mainly because I also really enjoyed being in the IT field. I enjoyed, like you said, I enjoyed working with a huge team, and I had like really good projects on hand, and it was a really good, company that I was working with. They were extremely flexible about working from home, and they were flexible about me taking time off for shoots and everything. But there is always a time when you have to decide whether you want to do, like multiple things and be okay at each, or you want to do something, a single thing, and do really well in that field. So I wanted to focus completely on photography and make something out of this career. So that's why I finally decided to put down my papers in like end of 2012. So and I've not looked back since then. So it's been a challenging journey, definitely, but it's also been extremely rewarding. uh, like you said, I've had like some amount of success in this field. So I'm hoping I'll do more and more in the coming years.
That's fantastic. But there's one question that comes to my mind that you decided to quit in 2012. So were you still doing photography before that? And if yes, then what was the genre that you were you were following? You were just dabbling around with the camera. So what was it, and how come all of a sudden when you decided to quit and get into photography, you certainly must have had things in your mind, or probably portfolio was already there. So there are many questions that are coming out in mind. So can you just take us a little back, little before 2012? What was going on in terms of photography?
Yeah, sure. So I actually picked up my first camera in like somewhere in the end of 2010, or maybe mid 2010, because actually I was going on a trip to Ladakh with my colleagues and friends. So I just wanted to pick up a camera just to document the travel. So that was the reason why I got a camera, and it was mostly like just to document. And I never ever thought that I'll become a serious photographer at that point of time. So it was pretty short, the journey between the time I picked up the camera to the time I decided to switch jobs. But it's just that in that 2 years years, I ended up taking a lot of pictures. I ended up realizing my passion for photography, and I ended up getting a lot of assignments too. I think I was lucky in that matter. So as soon as I came back from Ladakh with some pictures, I started posting them, and a lot of people actually identified. I mean, a lot of people actually liked my work, and I started getting inquiries from a lot of classmates and friends of mine who wanted me to, take pictures at their wedding, not as the main photographer, but as another photographer, because usually at that time, in those days, it was all, photographers in the weddings would be mostly family photographers who've been doing photography for a very long time for their family events. And most likely, the young brides would never really connect to those photographers, so they kind of like wanted, someone probably of their age, making pictures, documenting their side of things. So a couple of classmates asked me to start to take some pictures for them at their wedding. And luckily for me, these were actually paid assignments. They actually told me that we would love to pay. And although I didn't even know how to charge for wedding photography at that point, but I did get paid for these assignments. So that's when I realized that people, this could be a career option. This could be something where I can earn my bread and butter. And it so happened that once I started posting these images on Facebook, I started getting a lot of requests from across India. So we ended up shooting a lot of weddings in 2011, 2012. So that meant constantly taking off from my main job, which was IT. And it was like I had started to feel that I'm not doing complete justice to both. So yeah, so that's how it started, and that's how I moved to photography full time. So yeah, to answer your question, it was just 2 years. And funny thing is, before 2010, I'd never ever taken pictures, because although we had like a film camera at home, my parents always would be like, no, it has only like 36 rolls, so you can't shoot, let us shoot so that we'll get all the pictures right. If you take a picture, you might mess it up or something like that. So I'd never taken a picture before 2010. I'd never even felt the need to. And it so happened that once I got a camera, because I had just started working, and I had started traveling and things like that. So I got a camera, and it just completely changed my life. So yeah, one small decision, and it it took me this far.
That's so interesting, because you said before 2010 you had not even thought of photography. You had not even, almost like, maybe little exaggeration, but yeah, you had not even touched camera.
Yeah.
Then you suddenly go to Ladakh, and out of all places, Ladakh. Now, Ladakh, would somebody go from to Ladakh and come back and become a landscape photographer? And and it is virtually devoid of people. Well, people are there, but in terms of Ladakh per se, you go there to shoot the scenes and sceneries and beautiful landscapes, and then you come back, and obviously you must have had your job, and so you were posting landscape images, probably. That's what I presume, and people started asking you to shoot them, and that is I think the destiny was written there, and you suddenly 2012 when you decided, decided, you were clear in your mind that when you are putting down the papers, or when you planning to put down your papers, that you are going to get into wedding and nothing else? Or did you contemplate, and did you compare, do some analysis, do's and don'ts, and then what to do, and will this work or will that work, something on those lines? Because there will be many people who will be watching and will be getting inspired by this.
Yeah. So just to add to what you said, in Ladakh, I actually ended up shooting a lot of portrait images as well, because I felt that, landscape Ladakh in itself is so beautiful that I felt that anyone who goes there can probably shoot these, and I'd be no different. So and somehow I think at that point I also realized that I like taking pictures of people. So I had done a lot of portraits. So of course it was mostly like travel portraits and kind of like street portraits sort of a thing. So not really wedding related work or anything, but still, yeah, I got a lot of inquiries from my classmates. Maybe it's just, it's just that the timing was right, and my classmates were getting married at that point, and they probably felt that as a friend I'd make a better photographer than some stranger taking their pictures. Maybe it was just that comfort level, so that's how it started. Yeah, so like I said, I got extremely lucky. So yeah, and to answer the second part of your question, yeah, there was like a lot of thought that went in before I switched jobs. I kept analyzing, over analyzing. I mean, I am a person who always over analyzes things. So I kept analyzing. I kept thinking about, like, what genre I can pursue, and I did think of travel photography because it was something that I was interested in, uh, because I think travel photography was like my first love. But obviously it was not all that, when I wanted to make a a serious career out of it. I wasn't sure what kind of opportunities were there. I didn't have anyone to guide me or mentor me at that point of time. So because weddings happened, and then all my classmates started, classmates and their friends started hiring me for weddings. I realized I had a talent for shooting weddings, and I was good at what I was doing. So I thought, okay, why not this? And this was also because since I actually like shooting people, so it kind of fit into that whole scene. So yeah, so that's how I picked wedding photography. But I was always pretty clear in my mind that I didn't want to do only weddings. I wanted to do a little bit of portraits and little bit of lifestyle images, or maybe a little bit of fashion and things like that. So I've kind of dabbled a little bit in everything, sort of, over the years.
That's very interesting. And there was no resistance that you faced from within family. First, for getting into photography from a cushy IT job, and second, picking up wedding as a genre, your main genre, because in India, and particularly in North India, we always get to hear this. At least get to hear this. अच्छा शादी के photographer बन गए हो. अच्छा. So it's like a kind of, I know it is ironical, but people still somehow are unable to digest the fact that why not? But did you also face these kinds of challenges?
In my family, they were like extremely supportive, because it was not. I mean, my family has always been that way. As in, they've never really, asked me, to do certain thing, or they've always let me choose what I wanted to do. So, in fact, engineering also happened that way, saying, because it was my choice. In fact, my parents sort of wanted me to become a doctor because I was extremely good at studies. So they all sort of wanted me to become a doctor, but then I was like, no way. And my interest was in engineering. So I picked up engineering sort of at that point of time. So it's always been like, they've never actually told me saying you have to do this, or, this will be better or something like that. They've always let me choose whatever I want to do. I think, growing up, I've always shown a sort of maturity that they were happy about, and they let me pick my own future, sort of, in my house. So even when I switched to photography, they were a little worried whether I'll be able to maintain this financial independence. But other than that, they didn't have any worries about whether that it's wedding photography, that it's not as what it's not like as
There's no stigma attached to it.
glamorous as software engineer in a big IT company or something like that. Yeah, they weren't really as worried, or thinking about the stigma, like you said. It was mostly they were a little worried, little concerned if financially it would actually pay. But yeah, over the years they saw how hard I worked, and how hard how I was able to manage and everything. So they're pretty happy with that. So yeah, so I think, yeah, my family definitely has been like very supportive right from the beginning.
So looking back, I think on a lighter note, it is good that you became engineer and not doctor, because today we can say that you engineered your life into photography, Otherwise, you would have to say that you doctored your life into photography. Somehow it went very well.
That was a good one.
Doctoring your way into photography somehow doesn't sound well. Anyway, so I think I have a lot of questions, but we'll wait for some more time to before I ask those questions. But yes, we would like to see to begin with seeing your images, and then there are a lot of questions. So I think I will hold them within me because people would be itching to look at your images now.
Okay, yeah, sure. So before I share the images, just a brief about the kind of photography that we do. Uh, so earlier, when there were not many photographers, I mean, at least not many candid wedding photographers around. We used to get to travel all over India, and we used to shoot all kinds of weddings. But now we mostly shoot like South Indian weddings in and around Bangalore, or in and around South India majorly. South Indian weddings are very, very different from North Indian weddings. I'm explaining all this because your audience would predominantly be North Indian, probably. So that's why I am explaining all this. So South Indian weddings are mostly, all, where they give a lot of importance to rituals, and there is not much of, fun hangama sort of a thing, like as, it happens in North Indian weddings. So here it's mostly all about like, the family and what the different kinds of rituals and things like that. So if we end up shooting like say 10 hours in a day, we would probably have shot like 9.5 hours of rituals itself. So whereas in North India it's usually like maybe 1 hour of rituals in the fere, and then everything else is like fun, and there is like different kinds of things happening. Here it's mostly, all about rituals and all about I mean, we South Indians are quite serious compared
I,
to North
I,
Indians.
I have attended few because I had few South Indian friends.
Oh, okay.
I have also studied in Bangalore, so my college graduation happened in Bangalore.
Oh,
So
okay. I didn't know that.
you didn't know that?
No.
Tumkur to be precise.
Oh,
Yeah, so very very close to you.
okay. Okay, nice.
So, but
So
I've
you
attended
you
many
were
South.
an engineer, right?
No, I'm a pharmacist.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
a pharmacist. So I don't know what to say. I pharmacy. No, it doesn't work. So it doesn't work. Leave it. Anyways, have you ever shot North Indian weddings? You
Yeah,
can.
lots of them. We have shot lots of them, especially in the beginning of my career. We used to shoot more North Indian weddings than South Indian weddings. So I've traveled to Jaipur, Delhi, everywhere, and we've shot a lot. Off late, it's like mostly North Indian weddings that happen in Bangalore or around Bangalore, because I think now it's become such that, mostly people prefer to hire photographers from the same city, unless it's a destination wedding where everyone is like flying down to the city. So yeah, so we do shoot a lot of North Indian weddings, but I think our clientele is such that it's mostly like a combination of like it could be like a North Indian groom marrying a South Indian bride or something like that. So somehow we've ended up shooting a lot of cross cultural weddings, so we see all kinds of rituals. But yeah, that I think I enjoy shooting these cross cultural weddings because there is so much of content in them. There is so much of it's very different to a regular wedding. So yeah. Okay, so I'll just bring up some images. Just give me 1 second.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Are you able to see the
Yeah,
image?
yeah. We're able to see.
Okay. Yeah. So this is like, a random assortment of images. I yeah, I've put in like a random assortment of images. I most often don't find enough time to update my portfolio, so some of these images are a little old, some of them are like very new, and it's kind of like a mix. So okay, so uh yeah, so this is one of a bridal portrait we shot in Mysore in Lalit Mahal Palace. And so it was a Muslim wedding. It was Mysore is also my hometown, so it's shooting in Mysore has always been like one of my favorite experiences. So I just wanted to quickly talk about a few of the lighting tips, because a lot of people, a lot of photographers don't really pay a good attention to light. They're always thinking about the bokeh, or the they're always thinking about fancy lenses and stuff like that, but they, or more and more higher megapixel cameras and things like that, but no one is actually paying attention to lighting, which is like probably the most important in your image, other than the moment. So like I keep telling everyone, saying if an image has to be good, it has to have good composition, it has to have great lighting, and it also has to yeah, it also has to have a great moment. So that's when it'll really make that difference. So yeah, so this was one of the images we shot for a series, uh, what was that, NETV Band Baja Barat. So we this wedding was also being featured in Band Baja Barat. So Band Baja Bright, sorry, Band Baja Bright. Yeah. So okay, just talking about the lighting in this image, it is just a it's in this image we had a little time, so we kind of like set up like a three light kind of a setup, where there is a key light on the right. You can see the based on the highlights, you can see that the key light is on the right, and there is fill light on the left, so there's not too much shadow, or not hard shadows. And there is like a backlight which is separating her from the background. So most often in weddings we don't get a lot of time to shoot portraits. So we most often, because like I said, in South India it's it's ritual heavy weddings, so they are always on a tight schedule. So we most often get like 5 to 10 minutes to make portraits. So these days I've kind of simplified my lighting setup. It's usually either one light or two lights. But yeah, I whenever I get time, I try and experiment with like three lights or something like that.
No, but
Okay.
yeah, this is interesting. There are few things that come to my mind looking at this image. Now, this image probably has been taken at an aperture of 1.4 or 1.2.
Yes, 1.2, I think. Yes.
1.2. So
Yeah.
clicking at 1.2 itself is quite a task. It's not easy because you are, and that to a top shot where you have to bring both the eyes at the plane of focus, technically speaking. So um, keeping in mind that nothing goes out of focus and your plane of focus remains intact, and then focusing on light as well. And how do you manage? So what kind of lighting equipment that you carry in most of these weddings, which are easy to set up and handle as well?
Okay, so my most favorite set of lights is the Godox 8200, because it's really small and portable. It's easy for me to carry around, and I need not always have it on a stand. I can always give it to an assistant, or it could even be a bride's friend or someone. I can just ask them to hold it at a particular angle, and because it's not so heavy, anyone can hold it. So that is why I always prefer shooting with the 8200s, because it's extremely portable, and it's also powerful. So usually my main light is always in weddings, it's always 8200. If it is maybe a pre-wedding shoot or something, then maybe I experiment with, if I'm shooting outdoors, I experiment with 8600 and stuff. But otherwise in weddings, it's always an 8200 with a small softbox, which is portable and easy to carry. And for rim light and fill light, sometimes I even use like smaller flashes, like V860, like that.
All right, very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, so now switching over to a pre-wedding image. So in this, like I said, in pre-wedding shoots, we usually have a lot of time, so we set up like bigger lights and things like that. So here we did a long exposure, combined with, we used a flash to freeze the subject. So it is like it's almost like a 30-second exposure. So you can see how the clouds have moved. But we use two 8600s to fire onto the subject, so that they are frozen, so that there is no there is no, their movement has not been captured on camera because they are frozen with a flash. So this was, I mean, it took quite a bit of effort to, like, quite a bit of trial and error to get at this image, but it took almost like 1200 watts of light to actually freeze them at that particular time of the day. And also we used ND filters to achieve that long exposure. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. And since you said that it was quite an effort, do you always get support from the couple for when you are taking time, or do these couples at times have you faced that they start looking at you, or you are not prepared, kind of thing, without, because they don't realize what photography is all about? So what has been your experience in these scenarios?
So the way I work is, I always ensure I get the images that they are excited about first. Like I ensure I get a lot of nice portraits. I get like all kinds of images, or ideas that they have in mind. I do all of that first. So once we finish, once we have shown them our work, by finishing off some of the easy but nice shots in the beginning, then they kind of have that confidence in you, and then they are ready to experiment once they have like a good number of shots in the camera. So that's the trick. So I always ensure I give them what they want first, and then I start experimenting with my ideas. So then they're always open to experimenting, and they're when they see the results, they're like extremely happy, and then they are like more excited about experimenting. So yeah, that's how it goes.
Fantastic. That's a great tip that you've given. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, in this again we've used a single light source because we wanted to get the this was shot like in the middle of the day. Again, like most often we always don't get the liberty of, as a professional photographer, we don't get the liberty of shooting at the time that we want, because sometimes the clients get late, sometimes the makeup artist delays, or lots of things happen. So most often and especially being a wedding photographer, we always end up getting time during the middle of the day when there is no rituals happening, or there's a lunch break or something like that. So very early on in my career, I realized that there is no way I can work with like the best light, which is like early morning light. So it's always important to learn a little bit of lighting, and be able to shoot in natural light. Balancing natural light and flash. So yeah, this was again this was a little bit of challenge, because we this is a shot in Hampi on the river, so we had to like kind of like push their coracle a little into the river, and then one person was standing there holding the flash, and then we took like two shots so that we could clone out the lighting assistant in that. But yeah, so yeah, so it looks like a simple shot, but yeah, the effort that goes into every shot that most often is like unrecognized. Most people assume that okay, it's just natural light or something, but sometimes as professional photographers, we end up shooting in like odd hours, and then we have to like odd lighting, and then we have to ensure that the lighting is good. So yeah, most often we end up using flash to make images that where the light looks really good. So okay, so yeah, so Again, one more pre-wedding image where we use the sunlight and we used a flash to light them. As you can see, the couple, they are standing backlit. So most often, my style of photography is such that I love shooting in natural light. I love using the ambient light. And this was, of course, shot early morning, so you can see the sun hasn't gone really high. But I always like, when even during the golden hour, I always love shooting backlit. So I like to add light on my own so that, the image, the subject stand out. So yeah, so like I was saying, most often I like shooting uh, in scenarios where there is like really nice natural light, and I like to add light of my own. We always are trying to balance between the natural light and ambient light, sorry, flash light. So even in weddings, when we're shooting, we are always trying to balance the ambient light that is present there with flash. So I don't, we do shoot like low key images where there's a lot of where the background is like completely dark and we, throw light onto the subject. We do shoot such images as well. But we use that technique only when there is like a lot of clutter in the background. But otherwise, when the background is pretty, or, there's something interesting in the background, we would love to capture that as well. So that's why we prefer to balance natural light with flash. Again, one more from the same scene. So I love balancing early morning, that golden light with flash. In such scenarios, because you are overpowering the sun, you are overcoming, a lot of ambient light that is already there. You need something more powerful than an AD200. So we usually use AD600 for this, because that has like the perfect, kind of power to light the subjects during the day. So whenever we're shooting outdoors, and whenever we're shooting, whenever we have a lot of time to, set up, we usually use the AD600. Okay, let me just scroll over. The same kind of images are coming. Okay. Yeah, so this was again during a pre-wedding shoot. Here, it looks like, early morning light, but it was actually a 3-light setup. This whole flare that you're seeing on the right side, that is also a flash with a gel paper on it. We had to do this because we saw like really amazing golden hour, happened during when we went for the shoot, and we reached the venue really early, and we scouted all the locations. We found perfect places to shoot, but the client ended up getting a little delayed, when they reached. So because of that, we had to, we had to kind of recreate the kind of light that we had seen, because by the time they came, the light was pretty harsh and it was not great at all. So we kind of recreated that light by, you can see by looking at the highlight on the bride's hair, that that light is coming from the backlight that we have set up using an AD600 with an orange gel. And we have also used like a key light and a fill light, to get this image. So even in the next image, you can see the highlight on his shoulder that is coming from the backlight that we've set up, and they are lit with AD600 that we have set up in front as the key light, and we've used a reflector for a fill.
Backlight typically is again 8600 or something else that you use?
In this case, I used a 8600.
Yeah, because you have to make it stronger as well, because
yes.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to create something like sunlight, so we needed a powerful source. But say if you're working in a dark space and you just want to add a little bit of rim light, then you don't need a very powerful strobe for backlight. You can even use a flash. But here, because we were trying to replicate sunlight, so we switched to AD600 for backlight as well. So you can see all these images, they kind of look like it was shot in like early morning light. But somehow I don't get lucky with early morning light. I don't, some clients do, come on time. Sometimes they have, they get stuck in Bangalore traffic, which is like really, really terrible. So since you have been in Bangalore, you would know.
Yeah.
So you get stuck in Bangalore peak hour traffic, or that early morning IT traffic, and then there is no way you will reach anywhere on time. So yeah. So moving on to some image. Sorry, it's all coming in like random order.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. So during weddings, I try to keep my lighting setup as simple as possible, because there is no way I can do a 3 light setup and get more out of my image, because most often the wedding is always on a tight schedule, and there's like not much time between the time the say the bride and groom are ready to the time they actually reach the venue, or whatever, the before the ritual start, they don't have much time. So most often it's just like 5 minutes, sometimes not even that much, that we get to quickly snap some images. So for that reason, I prefer just using one single light source, and then sometimes maybe two, but most often just one single light source, so it becomes the whole process gets simplified. And that's what I've done in this. And also, like I said, we don't we don't always shoot in like big palaces or something like that. We also shoot in like small hotels and small convention halls, and for us it's all about the client rather than the venue or the kind of wedding it is. So because I always feel good when I'm shooting someone that I like. So we generally, when we when a client picks us, we also kind of pick them, whether we want to shoot their wedding, or whether we are excited about their wedding and things like that. We don't just take every wedding that comes our way, because sometimes we feel that we may not be the right kind of photographer for a certain client. Maybe their expectations are different, or maybe our what do you call that, our temperament is different. So
Yeah.
sometimes two people may not really work perfectly together. uh, so I always try and pick clients which whom I'll really gel well with, whom I can easily befriend, I can easily hang out with, and I can make good images while making them comfortable. So while also being comfortable myself. So why I brought that up is, sometimes like I said, for us people are the most important criteria when we pick a project. It's not about which wedding venue it is, or which city it is, or what destination it is. So most often we end up shooting in like small hotels, or small convention halls, where there generally is not a very great setting for like photography. So in such scenarios, it's important to learn how to highlight the best part of your image, and then hide everything else in shadows. Like that's what I think we have kind of like gotten
So kind of, yeah. So here you use the mirror probably to to enhance the look, probably.
yeah.
This
Yeah,
is a,
and also, like, if there is any clutter in the image, you'll not notice it because it's all in the shadow. So it draws attention. The whole point of images like this is to simplify, so that the attention goes directly to the subject, and not just show everything else that is happening around. So yeah,
so
so that was
yeah, that's interesting, and that's very important tip as well. Now, you mentioned that you get to shoot in very extreme kind of locations as well, like some very small venues and some large palaces as well. So, but personally, it's evident that you are prepared and all. But personally, which one do you relish more? So, what would you prefer as an individual? Where do you feel more comfortable and in control?
I think small weddings definitely is easy to be in control of than huge weddings where there's like so many things happening, and it's like you have to be where you become more of a manager, and you have to ensure that your team is covering in different parts of the place, and you have to ensure everything is happening seamlessly. So in addition to being a photographer, you also end up being like a event planner or a manager, where you're putting things together. So it is a lot of additional responsibility. But of course we do enjoy shooting like beautiful in beautiful venues and stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the kind of weddings that I enjoy the most are where I can easily gel well with the couple, because it's easy to photograph a friend's wedding than when you are always under constant pressure that okay, this is a client, and you're always thinking or overthinking, about what they like or what they won't like or something. So it's easy for me, if I can easily, get along with not just the bride and groom, but also their families. Like there are a few clients of mine who have always come back and hired us for like different events in their family. So now they've become literally like our own family. So I don't have to even think, like I know I don't even have to like worry, whether I'll be able to make all sorts of images that I want. I have that established that control, that comfort level with them. So it becomes extremely easy to photograph their wedding. So the minute they tell us, okay, there's a cousin's wedding, or there is like my his sister's wedding or something like that, when they come and approaches like that, we are like extremely happy to take that up. So yeah, so I think,
but isn't there now? It's a catch-22 kind of a situation. So uh, um, smaller kind of a wedding in a smaller venue, doesn't it translate into a lesser money as well? And larger venues and large and grand weddings, more money. And so probably, does that also happen? And does this also pinch at times? Or you want to, I know that you want to execute the same level wherever you are, and whatever, whether small or large weddings, keeping in mind, because it is your deliverance. But does it ever pinch also, in terms of that? Does a thought come to your mind that इसको कैसे manage करेंगे? Because now you want to execute it well, but probably the situation is such that you can't do everything because of the money part.
So I would like to clarify one thing here. Usually, I mean, at least for me, it's not been like, okay, small venues and small, smaller scale weddings have paid less. In fact, what we've seen is we get a lot of inquiries for destination weddings, and like we recently, before the lockdown, we had an inquiry for a wedding in Nepal, and most often these destination weddings, they don't want to pay. They just say, oh, we'll fly you all down to Nepal, so can you just do it for free, or can you do it for exposure? And can you do it for like half the rate and things like that. Whereas in smaller weddings that I've shot, these are, I mean, these clients never really bargain with us and say, no, you have to reduce your prices, because I think they understand the kind of effort that goes into it. The way I see it is, we generally don't change our pricing based on, the scale of the wedding.
The
It's usually,
location, yeah.
yeah, it's usually based on our effort, our time that goes into it, how many, how many of us are shooting, or how many hours of effort goes into shooting that event, and then how many hours of effort will go into editing those images, making the album and things like that. So it's all based on the effort that we put in. So uh, so we usually don't change the quote when it comes to small events, or smaller scale weddings or bigger scale weddings, except if, say in bigger scale wedding, if they say, okay, we need like, instead of six people, three people doing photo, three people doing video, we need like 12 people or something like that, which is like very absurd. We don't need that many people to shoot a wedding. So we usually are like three people shooting photos and three people doing video. If it's only photo, we are only three of us. So yeah, so we usually don't change the quote according to the kind of wedding. So it's usually, our rates are always standard, and the smaller venues or whatever, the clients, they never really bargain much. Whereas the
That's
bigger
important.
events they end up bargaining, because they're always pitching exposure as one of the revenue, which obviously doesn't work out as revenue for us. So they're
I,
always saying, you will fly you to that location, so you can enjoy, stay in that resort, so you should consider giving us a discount and things like that. So yeah.
That's interesting. I think that is, see, I asked for a specific reason because I keep getting these kinds of questions from people who want to get into wedding photography, and I thought that this is the right forum to even ask, because the message must go out that you do not compromise on your fees or money just because the venue is smaller or larger. It is what is, how much effort that goes into it. So pricing
Yeah.
always happens as per the effort and your
Yeah.
final deliverance, not
Yes.
as per what kind of, how expensive the lehenga is of a bride, and on how cheap the lehenga is. So not getting into those details. I think that is important. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Neeta, for this.
Yeah, and also to add to that, most often people, I mean, it's just that I think in India people don't uh, think photography is that important, or it has to be expensive. Most clients are ready to spend on, like you said, expensive lehengas or expensive venues or expensive food. But when it comes to photography, they're always like, okay, it's just taking pictures, so why should we pay so much, sort of a thing. So I think it's up to us to make people understand that this is probably the only thing that you can take away from your wedding. Like, obviously, the lehenga, you'll not really wear it again ever in your life, or you'll not go back and taste that food again. It's just there for that wedding day. It will not last beyond the wedding day. But our photographs and video and films and everything, these are the things that last a lifetime. So I think in India, uh, I think it's majorly because we photographers undervalue our work. We underestimate
Yes.
photography. We think, it's just taking pictures. Why should we charge so much? Or, the guy next door is charging 5,000, so why should I charge more? We are always undervaluing ourselves. So as long as we keep doing that, the clients won't understand the importance of photography. So I think it's extremely important for us to, change our way of thinking and understand that we are doing an important job, and price accordingly.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's move ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so more images. I love shooting portraits, so wherever I get time, I try and make as many portraits as possible, along with the, of course, pictures during the moments. That is also really important. I mean, that is like the most important thing. But whenever I get time, because I enjoy shooting beautiful portraits, so I spend considerable effort into that. So as you can see, most of these, like this and this, are all like using single lights. So in this, we've just kept the sun in the background. Again, like I said, I always prefer to shoot backlit when during early morning or late evenings. And I have used light, external light, in this case an 8200 itself, because when we, I mean, this was shot in like Mahabalipuram, and when we are traveling outside Bangalore, we generally don't carry a lot of, uh, you know, heavy equipment. So in this, we've just gone, we've held the flash really close to the subject, and then, cloned out that flash from the picture. So we've been able to, light the subject even with the NAD 200, and also because it's still early morning.
All right.
Yeah. So
This is an interesting frame. Frame itself is very, very interesting.
yeah, so I was standing outside the door. The bride was getting ready. I mean, she was ready, and she was just talking to her relatives and stuff like that. So I saw this frame where I was still waiting for her to come out. We wanted to go. She got married in a nice hotel, so we wanted to go out and explore some of the locations. But I saw this nice frame through the door where uh, uh, I thought, okay, if we add a light on her, then, the frame will look nice. And then we just added one light in front of her, so that gave a nice light fall off on her, on the cheek. And we loved how it looked. And then I thought, because this part, the part of the door, which is dark, it looks really empty. So we added some fairy lights in the foreground, just to, add to that frame. Yeah, this is again a similar shot where I've used fairy lights in the foreground just to add to that frame. This was one location, like sometimes this image I put it here because sometimes the client vision and our vision don't really perfectly match. Like this place had like kind of like blue wall with yellow kind of a border. If you can see, these
Yeah,
arches
yeah.
have like yellow in them, and it had a purple background. This the back side of this arches. But
All
the
right.
client really wanted a picture in front of these three arches. Not really sure why, but they loved the arches and they said, we want a picture. And the clothes that they were wearing and the kind of background that it was, it just wouldn't go. It was like completely contrasting, and it was not looking nice. And I just didn't like that color scheme in itself. So that blue, yellow, and purple and everything, it was like taking away too much attention in the frame. So what I did was I completely underexposed the image. I used a flash with a gel on it to light the background. I made that background red, and I had some red fairy lights. I had fairy lights in my bag which changes color. So one of the colors is red, so I just used that color, just to add some foreground. Now with the backlight, it's also it's created a silhouette, and it's also kind of lighting the arches, giving like a rim light on the arches, which is looking nice. So I put this image here because their priority was to get an image in front of those arches. They didn't care how the image would turn out. But if we feel that something doesn't go according to our vision, we should always make that change and show what is exactly possible in, like, even in, like, simple locations. So when they saw this image, they were like totally blown away, because they didn't even expect it to turn out this way. They expected that blue wall, yellow arch, and things like that. So
Yeah, I was about to ask you that what was their reaction after they saw this image?
they really liked it, and they were like really surprised, because most often I think that's why I like using flash a lot, because most often people can't imagine how the image would look with flash, because they're always they're whatever they're seeing, the natural ambient light is what they're thinking. So it's always nice to see their expression when they it's something totally unexpected, and it's nice to see their expression.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, then yeah, so like I also said, I love shooting during sunrise and sunset. So here I this was a location where I'd like kind of like finalized for like a couple portrait, and then the bride had to go rush to get ready for the next event, and then we just didn't have her during the sunset. We could just manage to bring the groom for like a probably like 2 minutes, and just have him stand there before he would also rush off to get ready. So I love combining this natural light, especially light during the golden hour, now during sunset, or just after sunrise, and add a flash to light the subject. So here I also used the buildings in the background to kind of frame him, and I shot him against the pool, so that the reflection also adds to that image. Yeah, so I during the events, I like especially on the dance floor, I like experimenting with shutter drag, and trying to create something with a slow shutter speed and a flash to freeze the subject. So that is one of my favorite techniques. So yeah, so the way this is done is, if you have like a shutter speed that is slow, like maybe half a second or 1/10 of a second, something like that, then you will be able to just move your camera when you're shooting, so that you can capture the streaks of light, and at the same time use a flash that is strong enough to freeze them. So for these kind of shots, I prefer using like an 8200 because it needs to be a powerful flash to freeze them and not get a lot of motion blur. uh, yeah, so that is what I've done here. And yeah, so again here I've just used a single light, and lit the bride. I shot this from outside the window. I'd just gone outside to just check what the light looked like outside, when I was like I wanted to shoot in before the sun went down completely, and I wanted to shoot in that nice light. So I went outside, and then I just turned around and looked at her, and because she was getting ready, I could see her through the window, but obviously she was not clear because I saw a lot of reflection. So then I had this idea for this frame where I wanted to light her from inside, but capture from the outside, so that I'll get the window frame and also get all the trees and the sky in the in the image, in the reflection. So that's what I've done here. And as you can see, it's just a single light image. So most often, like I said, we usually shoot in like smaller teams, so we don't take a lot of people. So most often I'll have like one assistant with me to help me with lighting. That assistant was like holding the light, and we managed to get this shot.
Now, one thought that just came to my mind is that all these shots are fabulous and phenomenal, and because knowing wedding, that you shoot wedding, and also knowing that you don't get time at all. Forget time to think. You don't even get time to shoot. Things happen very, very fast.
Yeah.
So, how much planning that goes into this? Like, do you do the recce of that venue, and probably visualize beforehand that this is where during this time approximately you have to try and create a shot, at least try and create a shot, or does it come naturally to you that the moment you are there, you suddenly it flashes in your mind that now this will work, and you quickly create one image and move on to the next? How does it work?
Yeah. So before every shoot, I actually do a lot of planning. I sit and take notes. I do location scouting. Like this was in Goa, so usually when it's like destination weddings, we always like go one day before so that we can scout the location and figure out each and every spot where we need to take pictures and things like that. But what I want to say is, in weddings, no matter how much you plan, especially in South Indian weddings, most often like 95% of our ideas don't get executed in that particular wedding. So no matter how much I plan, I come back. I mean, the way things happen, the kind of rush that it happens, and the chaos in weddings, we don't get to execute all the ideas then and there. But it's always good to plan, because if not in that wedding, we always come across that situation in some other wedding maybe, and it immediately flashes that, okay, I couldn't take this image in the other wedding, maybe I can try it here. Whenever you get the time, you get to experiment and things like that. So yeah, till now, no matter how much I've planned, I've never been able to be 100% satisfied with be and be able to make all the frames that I thought of. But yeah, the planning helps, because it kind of gives me confidence that I'm prepared. So that's the only reason I plan. Even today, after shooting like some 200 250 weddings, I'm still kind of like nervous shooting a wedding. So sitting and planning it in my head gives me a lot of confidence, and I at least feel like I'm prepared. I'm not just taking a chance. So yeah.
That's interesting, and I think since you are shooting so much, so if your plan A in a particular wedding does not work, you still end up executing that wedding to the client satisfaction. Those ideas and the plannings would still remain a part of your mind, at the back of your mind somewhere. And the moment you come across a similar kind of a situation in some next wedding, probably there you will be immediately executing it. Does it happen that way also?
Yeah, it happens exactly like that, because the ideas are already there in some part of the head, because we have sat and planned so much. So if not in this wedding, we know we'll be able to execute it in some other wedding, somewhere we'll get that opportunity. So otherwise, whatever, we go with the flow, and we see what best we can do in that particular situation, and we make the most out of it that way.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, so I put this image in here because like I said, these guys, they got married in Goa, and it was a beautiful destination wedding. Again, perfect kind of wedding that I like to shoot, because it was a North Indian groom and a South Indian bride. So you can see from their outfits only, you can see the difference. And it was like a perfect combination of a complete a lot of North Indian fun that happens during Bharat and Varmala and all that, and all the beautiful rituals of South Indian weddings. So yeah, but like I said, most often the only time we get to make portraits are during like middle of the day. If you see the shadow there, you know where the sun is. It is like right above them. they got married right beside the beach, but because they had like so many rituals planned, and because obviously early morning, not everything happens on schedule and things like that, and they never got the opportunity to actually do some couple portraits by the beach, and they had to vacate the venue and move on to their next destination that afternoon itself. So the only time we got to ever shoot next to the beach was at around noon, during noon. So uh, in such situations, I mean, it's extremely important to understand flash and to be able to use flash to be able to manage with whatever light that you have, uh, uh, because otherwise it is impossible to make good images. So we barely could open the eyes during this time, because Goa heat, and that harsh sunlight during noons, but because we had a flash, we could make it work. So uh,
there are a couple of interesting questions. There are actually a few interesting questions. So let me first ask. There are a couple of compliments as well. So when Chetan Dodbad is saying that wonderful to hear this pretty quickly decision taken of venturing into passion and matter closed. Awesome. Kudos for that. Usually we take a lot of time when we do these kinds of switchovers. So that was Chetan. And one is very common asked question by everybody's mind is that what are the lenses that you mostly use in wedding? And I think it's by Nilotpal Laskar.
Okay. Uh, so I use a 35 mm most often, because I'm always shooting wide, and I like the kind of, the field of view that a 35 mm lens gives on a full frame. So mostly I'm shooting 35 mm. When I'm doing portraits, I switch to 85. So it's usually the combination of 35 and 85. Other than that, I also use 50 mm once in a while, but it's mostly 35 and 85. And when, if at all I get I'm in a situation where it's a really tight frame, and there is no place to move around, then maybe I switch to like a 24-70, so that I'll have 24 mm to capture the rituals and stuff. But
But
otherwise,
yeah,
yeah.
not 70-200s and all.
No, I don't shoot with 70-200, mainly because I don't think that is candid wedding photography, like how everyone assumes it is. People think that if it has to be candid, you just stand far away and you shoot with a 70-200, but that's not how it works. uh, for wedding photography to be effective and to be something that is memorable to the client, you have to be you have to capture wide frames which show the story, not just close up of bride and groom. Like, that is not what wedding photography is. Most often, people, that's what they do. They take beautiful close-ups of bride and groom, smiling, enjoying their day. Of course, that is probably some part of the album that is important. Like, some close-ups are important to give that visual difference in the album. But the most important images are the storytelling images, which are like wide images, which show context, which tell a story, which depict more of what is happening. So I prefer to shoot with a wide angle most often. Of course, my husband also shoots with me, so if I'm on wide, he usually is on a longer lens to capture some of the details, and vice versa. So if he switches to wide, I switch to a longer lens. Usually that's 85. But yeah, I don't shoot with the 70-200, because then I'll be like way too far, and I'll not even get to know what exactly is happening. I think one of the main reasons, one of the reasons I'm able to capture a lot of moments is because I'm up close to the action. I actually can see and hear what is happening around, so I can be prepared. I can anticipate different moments, and I can actually take those pictures faster. So yeah, that's why I don't shoot with 70-200. I sold my 70-200 like long back. I don't even have it. Any other questions, Jesse, or shall I continue?
There, I'm getting lost every time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I don't know, something is wrong. we have two different Wi-Fi's. Both are not working. My data is giving me trouble, so I'm somehow managing today. The first
Yeah,
time.
I can see that your voice kind of comes in and goes. So sometimes I
Yeah,
know
so
that you're
there's
having.
a lot of challenges, and that too, since afternoon, I'm facing a lot of challenges. Anyways, I think somehow we'll manage this. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So okay, so Monica, she's already told about the lenses that she uses. So she's also asked the same question, and but there's one more question by Monica, is that tell us about the mistakes, and I think I'll come to that question a little later because I have something to ask. So anyway, I think we can move ahead with this, and then I
Okay.
have some interesting questions to ask. So let us continue with this right now.
Okay, so another example here where I purposely chose to darken the background because the background was not really going well with the kind of shot that I had in mind. So uh, like I said, sometimes we shoot in situations where the venue is not completely under our control. The kind of decor that is done is not under our control, so it's always up to the photographer to execute their vision and ensure that the frames look really good, no matter the venue, no matter how big a palace you're shooting or how small a venue you're shooting. You should always be able to make great images. So yeah, so here we've used those nice bulbs, those the typical warm bulbs that they hang and like in various places to create that nice ambience. We only that we chose to shoot it by completely underexposing so that we get the color of the bulbs so that we can expose the couple by using a flash. Most often I see photographers who have shot in same venue always using just the ambient light, because obviously those bulbs are creating nice ambient light, and they always end up using that ambient light and a shallow depth and manage the shot. We didn't go that route because I felt some of the trees and some of the bushes, and this was at the end of the shoot where there was like some chairs and some stuff lying around in the venue, and it was not really, it was almost at the end of the shoot and it was not really the perfect looking decor anymore. So yeah, so we underexposed the shot and added a light onto the couple to make them stand out. Otherwise, if you just shoot an ambient light, if you get the exposure right for the couple, then obviously all these bulbs just blow out and they just look like white blobs, and there is like a lot of whatever ambient light is there, that is also captured. So we didn't want the rest of the scene to be seen. It was only supposed to be these lights and the couple, so that's how we shot. Okay, I'll go a little faster.
That's interesting because what you're sharing is something as a very experienced kind of understanding about lighting, and because when suddenly you realize that lighting is not up to the mark and you still have to adjust quickly and create images, this requires quite an understanding about how lighting works. And I'm sure that you have probably mastered this technique over a period of time now. But um, how was the situation when you started, probably? Because this question might come to many people's mind, that when people start, no matter how hard they have worked beforehand, they have practiced, but their knowledge in practicality is always limited. Because theoretical is something, and executing that into practicality is a totally different ball game. So did you struggle in initial days because of the limited understanding about how lightings work, and how can you use all that available light with flash to get creative images?
Okay, so yes, of course, it's always a learning curve. There is always a learning curve to everything. But I think I very early in my career, I realized that I can't depend on natural light, because it wouldn't all, I mean, some images obviously in, will look amazing because it's shot in great natural light. And then the client looks at those images and they want those kind of images, but the time they're giving you is around like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So no way you can replicate that kind of light unless you know how to use external lighting. So this is what I realized, that if you want to, ensure that you have consistency in your work, then you need to have consistent source of light, which is not possible if you don't know flash. If it's not possible, no matter how many times you tell the client that no, these were shot early morning, but you came at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so we can't match the same thing, they'll not really understand the difference. So we can't, as professional photographers, we can't make excuses. So that's what I figured quite early in my career. So I have actually put in a lot of effort to understand and experiment and try and learn lighting. But at the end of the day, I don't think lighting, I mean, at least basic lighting is not very hard to learn. It's actually quite simple, but most often people have that inhibitions, and they have that a little, they're concerned that it's something too complicated and it's not easy to learn, and so people never try. But I think everyone should pick up some good flashes and experiment with light, because it's not that hard to create like good light. And yes, you'll get better with practice. So I think, yeah, over the years I have gotten better, and I'm constantly trying to do more and more, and learn more techniques and things like that. So it's definitely a learning curve, everything is.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm sure in times to come, you will create images that probably even you will not believe that this was possible.
I hope so. Yeah, so
Yeah,
again,
such beautiful images. These couple of images are, man, they're too good.
yeah. In fact, the place it was executed, this was shot for this lehenga brand, which is a brand in Bangalore. So this was not shot during a wedding. It was it's a model, and she's wearing that lehenga for that brand we shot, and it was shot in a cafe, which was completely like a modern themed cafe. So no one actually believes me when I say that we did the shoot there, because obviously when you're shooting an image, the clothing has to go with the background and things like that. So yeah, so here I've used like three lights again, one key light, one fill light, and a rim light to light the hair and the lehenga. I've added a gel on that rim light to create a little bit of interest in the image. Again, another image from the same series, and again it's the same three light setup: key light, fill light, and the rim light to light the hair. Rim light again has a gel. Okay, so this was during the Sangeet of that Goa wedding. So again, they were getting really late for the Sangeet. She had to rush because the event had to start at a certain time, and they were already quite delayed. So we literally had like probably like 2 minutes to get some portraits. So I saw this when I yeah. So how scouting helps is when you had asked earlier about the question whether we do location scouting earlier. So
Okay.
here in this case, I had seen this frame, when she was getting ready, when she was, getting the makeup done and everything. At that point of time, it was not a great frame because she was still in the middle of hair and, getting the hair done and things like that. So, because I'd already kind of imagined that frame there. So, when she asked, where do you want me to pose? I said, okay, just sit on that chair right there. And I wanted a picture. So it was something surprising for the client as well, because she assumed I'll say, let's go outdoor and let's shoot, against greenery or something like that. But I said, no, I want you right on that chair and I want to, execute this frame. And I think it turned out pretty well for like, for just a second that we shot it in. I think it turned out pretty well.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this again was a simple shot. by using two lights to light the ring, and also using the sequence on the tablecloth that it was placed on to shoot the image. I chose this. I mean, this was not supposed to be where it was. In fact, this was the tablecloth that was used to keep the wedding cake that the couple was supposed to cut. So when I went to take a picture of the cake, and I saw this beautiful sequined tablecloth that they had. So I literally ran to the couple and said, "Please give me your rings." They had already exchanged rings. I said, "Please give me your rings." I took it from them, and I took this shot. So I think it turned out really nice because because I was able to, like, at that point visualize that it'll turn out nice over here. Yeah, so I think I've covered most of the images. So in case you have more questions, I think we can look at that.
They were fabulous images, I must say, because I have been, guys who are there, I've been following her work for some time now. And uh, let me be honest, that every time she releases some images, I'm there to see that. She might not know that now, but yes, I do look at her images because, see, one, she's a fabulous photographer and she does create wonderful images. And second, when you meet a photographer, when you know a photographer one-on-one personally, then it's a different association that you have, and different bonding that you have with the individual. And I think that I have that kind of bonding with Neeta. So probably that is one reason that I've been really following her work from last 4 5 years continuously. And so fabulous work, completely awed by whatever you have shared. And if anybody wants to check out our work, that I've already mentioned her website into our description. So you can just go there and then get floored with the kind of images that she has created. So we have a lot of questions. I think you can right now stop sharing, and then we can come back if we want.
Yeah.
All right. So I just hope the kind of internet continues to support me at least for some more time, because it's really giving me trouble, and I'm a little scared today. All right. So now, one thing that I know, it is, how do I frame that question? Okay. Do you find yourself ever to get into a box thinking that after, let's say, 5 10 weddings that you have done, and every time you go to a next wedding, you keep getting the thoughts of the creative thoughts from the previous work that you have done? They keep on influencing your work. Has it ever happened to you? Because it is otherwise very easy. And how do you break that shackle and continue to create unique images?
I think one thing is, like I mentioned, weddings. No two weddings are similar, and because of the chaos and that rush that is there in Indian weddings, even if I want to execute some of the shots that I've shot in the previous few weddings in this wedding, sometimes it's just not possible, even if I want to do it. So I think the way Indian weddings are, they kind of force you to think, what you can create in that particular situation, and then it makes you think and do something different. Of course, overall the style kind of remains same. Like my style, I think, would be to keep a very very simple sort of an image. Like I don't want to like complicate it with like way too much, putting way too much into the image. I like simple images, but I like images with good light. So yeah, so that's kind of like how my style is. It's colorful, and it's off late it's with good light, and that's what I keep trying to do better in every wedding. So the style kind of remains consistent, but even if I want to execute the same ideas in a different wedding, most often it's not possible. So in fact, we do get requests from clients saying, can you do that shot that you had put up on your Instagram, can you take a shot like that? And the whole scenario would be such a in a way that most often that's not possible. So so we come up with something else for them and they end up liking it. So I think Indian weddings do the job for us in keeping us on our toes and helping us, shoot different images. Yeah. So but to add to that, I would say if you learn lighting and if you are interested in experimenting with lighting, then you automatically end up creating different kinds of images. So because there's so much to learn and there's so much to do with light, so you won't get into that box and say, okay, I've done everything, now there's nothing more to do.
All right. So there was one very interesting small question by Monica, and I think I wanted to ask that as well. So I waited till now. Have you ever made mistakes and you realized that you made mistakes? And you came back and you said those mistakes turned out to be. So her question was only, can you talk something about your mistakes? So I'm adding to that is that little masala. So have you come back and realized that that mistake turned out to be actually your win, and you ended up doing much better and ended up creating an image which otherwise would not have been possible?
uh, yeah, I mean, sometimes when you are shooting under pressure, there is so much of pressure in weddings. It's not for the lighthearted. So you have to
Yeah,
constantly,
I know.
you have to constantly keep looking out for moments, and at the same time, you have to ensure there's good composition, do good light, and you cannot miss any moment. And there's so much pressure because things are happening so fast. And sometimes we end up shooting, or at least until now, we end up have ended up shooting weddings with like 2000 3000 guests and stuff. Of course it will change here onwards, but when there is like when there are so many people crowding around you and stuff, it's not always easy to think on your feet all the time, and sometimes mistakes do happen. So I would have put, like when you're thinking, especially when you're using flash, uh, sometimes maybe I got something wrong, and then I later I curse myself that okay, I should have done it this way. Sometimes you just can't think, okay, what could be the right technique to suit a particular image or a moment or something like that. Yeah, and I've always come back and thought, okay, I should have done that. Why didn't I think of it then? It was such an obvious answer. So under pressure to think and come up with even obvious stuff will not seem that
Yeah,
obvious. So yeah, it has happened in some weddings, and it has also happened that finally whatever we ended up with has been nice enough. So it's been good. It's been good in a different way. Maybe if I'd thought of the original technique, I wouldn't have tried this technique at all. Right. So yeah.
yeah. Thank you for that answer. And another question that I have in my mind is that you. I've always seen that wedding photographers are in tremendous pressure in terms of it's like a war zone that you are entering, and you can't miss a moment because it's kind of unpardonable. You do that, and you're gone forever, kind of. So the family and
Yeah.
they're really going to strangle you. That how could you miss that, and how could you miss that? And so, but how do you manage to stay calm? Is Do you believe in that? There are a couple of parts to this question. So, how do you manage to stay calm? It is not easy. And second is that do you believe in number game? That continue taking weddings, and maybe after a month, when you've done 15, 20 weddings, and then you will start delivering. Or you are very particular about taking one wedding at a time and executing that. And how does it work? How do you balance that?
Okay. So answering the first part of your question, sorry, I completely forgot what was the first part of the question again.
Now, you are under tremendous pressure. Like
Oh yeah,
every
yeah,
wedding
yeah.
photographer is under tremendous pressure to really. If you are committed, then the pressure is there, and it could be really a pressure cooker situation in many scenarios. How do you manage to stay calm? Because if you fall into that trap, then you will start compromising with the creative aspect also. It does happen.
Yeah.
because that starts impacting that, your creativity. So how do you manage to stay calm and still execute it to your satisfaction?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, most often before the wedding, I'm always extremely nervous. No matter how many weddings I've shot, I'm still always, it always feels like it's my first shoot. And I'm extremely, extremely nervous about it. So I think somehow the nerves actually work for me, because when I'm like really nervous, I somehow maybe work better under pressure. And the about remaining calm, I don't know if I remain 100% calm, because I do snap at my teammates once in a while, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're not doing that, you're not doing this, or something like that. I don't think I'm 100% calm, but I mean, I can I am calm enough to shoot the wedding and not lose a moment. But if I see someone, slacking off, or if I see that a certain teammate is not doing the job that they are assigned to or something, I'll immediately snap at them. So I'm not really the most calm person, but yeah, but I can manage to remain calm enough to execute the project to a good level.
And the second part was that what was the second part? Come on, too many things are happening. My questions are too complicated.
Yeah.
So the second part was that do you believe in number game, and what is your, how do you plan to decide that how many weddings in a particular season or in a particular month or in a week or so, something like that. Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah. So uh, there have been years when I've shot like 60 weddings in a year, and there have been years when I've shot only 15. So, what I mean, in the initial part of my career, I used to shoot a lot of weddings, but now, off late, we don't take up more than 20 weddings a year. In fact, I think in 2019, we shot only like 15 weddings. It's not based on uh, say we already have a wedding this month, so we'll not take one more. It's not like that, because weddings are extremely seasonal affairs. So sometimes during season we have to take up more weddings. But of course, like we never take up like two events which are like on the same day or something like that. We don't split our team, and like how certain photographers work, they, or you have like a huge team and they take up multiple weddings, and then they send different teams to different places. We don't work that way. We always take up only one event per day at a time. And anyways, because weddings are so seasonal, maybe in a season we might end up doing like 4 to 5 weddings a month, and some seasons we may end up doing just one. But overall, we take up about like maybe 20 weddings a year, not more than that.
That's interesting. And what kind of challenges that you see? Because what is happening is, I realize this is my observation, and correct me if I'm wrong. Is that there was a time when the photographer, even after having shot the wedding, was really in demand from the family, because they wanted to see the images, and there was no way they could see it till photographer gives it to them. Today things have changed, and even though you are shooting, the whole family is out there with their mobile phones and creating their own images. So that kind of that novelty factor that was earlier existent does not exist anymore, because yeah, you are creating fabulous images, you will be giving phenomenal images, which otherwise is not possible within what they are doing. But still, the novelty might be missing. हाँ, ये तो देखी है, ये तो अच्छा 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 उसने पप्पू ने भी मेरे को खींच के दी थी अपने मोबाइल से भेजी थी. These kinds of things. So, do you feel that that also is now creating more pressure, that and they start demanding that WhatsApp, please send us images through WhatsApp. Some you can send. These demands do come or not, and if they come, how do you tackle that? Do you really flow with the demand, or you stick to your guns that no, I will give whenever I have to deliver the main images?
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to see the images as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do get requests that, okay, can you send some right now? Can you WhatsApp it to us right now? Or can you, just transfer it from your camera to our phone or something like that? We always say, no, we can't do that. Luckily, clients don't know that we have, Wi-Fi connectivity on our camera these days. But we just tell them, no, we need a memory card reader. It's not possible or something. And also, we always tell them that, every image has to have some sort of post processing done on it. So we take our time, and I think when clients respect your work, they sort of understand that it requires some sort of effort to bring out the vision that we had. So they are okay to wait most often. But if they are like really eager, we tell them at least like maybe in like 2 weeks we'll send you like a sneak peek sort of a, like a set of 10 to 15 images earlier or something like that. But otherwise we usually take 1.5 months, and we are very particular about that. We need that 1.5 months to ensure that we deliver a good set of images. And clients are okay with that, and I'm glad in a way that their family members are taking pictures on phone, because they at least have something to see and they don't bother us during that time. So I think it is working. I mean, it has its own advantages and disadvantages. I hate it when they come into our frame to take that bad image on their phone, but it also works as a favor to us, because they already have so much of images to look at from different phones and iPhones and iPads and stuff. They are not pressurizing us to deliver soon. But yeah, we usually try and deliver within 1.5 months, so that yeah.
I think that's interesting take, because and I think it's great that to see that you are holding on to your guns and saying that this is what we will do. Because I came across, I'm not going to name him. He's a decently successful, very successful wedding photographer in North India, not in Delhi, but in northern part of India. And he says that we have to play to the gallery, because if we don't give, then they will start asking somebody else. And probably it again boils down to how much confident are you on your own work. And if you get swayed by these kinds of demands, then probably you yourself are not very confident of your own work. I think, but yeah, so that's very important. Now, one thing that I've never asked any wedding photographer on this forum, and I just thought of asking. The wedding is one of the very intrinsic and very private and very important function or an event in a family's life. Uh, and data corruption, losing images because of that is another big challenge, and that fear is always, the danger is always looming large. There was a time, I always say that there was a time that 486 and 586 kind of machines used to come with 1 year warranty, and they used to last a lifetime. Now the computers and hard disks come with lifetime warranty, but they don't last a couple of years. So this is kind of strange, but this is true. How do you ensure that things don't go wrong as far as losing the data because hard disk failed, card corrupted, or something like that?
Yeah. So yeah, so we have like multiple backup system. Like we do at least like 3 backups. So one is on the I mean, as soon as we come back from a wedding, Varun is the one who handles all data. He doesn't even let me sit and handle it along with him. He does it all by himself. So even when say we have a shoot next day or something like that, he sits like, even if it's required to sit all night and transfer that data safely and make backups of it, he'll do that. So that way I think it's I mean, he's been a great help in that matter, because I get a necessary rest so that I can go back to shoot next day. So yeah, so what we do is we first make a backup in a solid state drive, because solid state drives are a lot more safer than like regular SATA drives. So first we make a backup in the solid state drive, and the copy is still there in the card, and then we make another backup on an external drive, and third backup on a NAS, network attached storage device. So that way we have three backups, and we don't, we know, because it's all three different types of hard drives. One is a solid state drive, one is a SATA drive, one is a NAS drive. So there are three different kinds of hard drives. So the chances of all three failing is very, very rare. So that way we are like, safer with the data. So we always put extreme importance to like data. So even whatever our teammates shoot, we ensure, we've told them all to, give their cards that day itself, in case they take it home and they lose that data or something like that. We can't risk that. So Varun collects the data at the end of the shoot, and then we come back and he sits himself and transfers the entire thing overnight. We don't even like keep it and say, okay, we'll do it at a later point. We'll do it immediately and make backup. That's when we peacefully sleep. Otherwise, there's no way we can sleep. Yeah, so that's what we follow.
Okay, that's interesting. I think that is the advice that everybody should really follow, because this is very critical. Data is very critical, and I've seen many people really getting callous with it and overconfident. Yeah, nothing will happen. We have as if they have a special connect somewhere up there, and anyways, so there is another question, interesting question by Chetan Rodwar. Who covered your wedding? Was it before you started wedding photography or after?
No, it was after I started. It was after I started wedding photography. So my wedding was covered by one of my friends, Arun. He's a friend of mine since, I mean, he also came with me on that Ladakh trip that I talked about in 2010. So he covered my wedding, and it was there was also one more photographer by name Anand Rati. He's very, very popular now, very successful. So he also covered the wedding. So both of them together, yeah, the two of them together covered the wedding. So it was, yeah, such long time ago. So
Great. Yeah, and there is one thought has been coming to my mind during this lockdown. See, photography worldwide and particularly in India is very highly competitive in terms of pricing and in terms of overall package that you give and for how much you give. But after during this lockdown, I've started seeing some I would call it ridiculous kind of advertisements coming that 1 lakh and we will give you TV also and fridge also, as if they are yeah, I saw that. I don't know you saw that or not.
I saw that too.
Yeah, and this is crazy. And where is this price war headed? Is it healthy? I don't find it very healthy, to be very honest. That's my personal opinion. But what is your take on this, and where is it going to end?
Yeah. So this is one topic that I'm extremely passionate about. I literally talk about this, the whole pricing aspect of photography, and then how these price wars are actually ruining the industry. I literally talk about this in every workshop, every talk that I give, because I think this whole price war, this unhealthy competition is literally ruining our industry. And like how you said, these days it's become totally absurd. Like how you said, someone was promising a TV and stuff. I saw some photographer from, I think, Lucknow or someplace. They were promising a complete kitchen appliances from Bosch or something like that,
Yeah,
which is
I
so
saw that.
ridiculous.
I saw that as well. Yeah.
Which is so ridiculous. What has that even got to do with photography? I mean, it's like, first of all, I feel even before lockdown, photographers completely undervalue photography themselves. So the clients don't attach any importance to photography, because the way photographers undervalue themselves and their art, and because of the price war, it was so bad before the lockdown, before this whole COVID-19 situation. But now it's becoming even worse, and this is a serious issue, because it's what people are not realizing is that we are not in this for like a short period. We're not doing photography for like next 2 months and then we'll move on to something else and then we'll move on to something else. No, we are in this for
Yeah.
long run. So if you just because at this moment you don't have shoots and you're panicking and you're like giving away shoots for free, or you think you don't have enough amount to pay your rent or something like that, so you're like literally doing it for like peanuts, then you're actually ruining the industry. You're bringing down the market value. You're also kind of ruining your own future, because once you reduce your price and you say, okay, I'll shoot for 5,000, no way you can go back to the original amount that you were charging, or no way you'll be able to like jump to a sustainable pricing model later. Because if you once drop your price, people will expect you to shoot at that price, or maybe charge a little more than that. So it's better you hold on, you don't panic, and don't change your pricing absurdly, or don't undervalue yourself. Don't do it, give it away practically for free. Because at the end of the day, we are in this to run a sustainable and profitable business. We are not I mean, this is our livelihood, this is our sole bread and butter. We can't just do it for like peanuts and expect to make a living out of it. Because you may think that, okay, I'll shoot, instead of say 50 weddings, I'll shoot 100 weddings and I'll make up that difference or something. But it's not practically possible. It is going to burn you out. And when you realize that you are putting in so much of effort for like literally no returns, then you'll feel demotivated. You'll not do a great job at the output. And then your clients will notice that. They'll not refer you to more people, and it's a chain reaction you're setting. And people, I mean, your whole work will go for a toss. Your value in the market will go for a toss, and it is a bad situation you're getting yourself into, and you're also pulling down the market value. So I mean, if at all you find yourself in a situation right now where you feel that you are unable to pay your rent or whatever, all of us are going through the same thing. Like I'm sitting in my studio, which is like been unused for like 3 or 4 months right now, and we are paying huge rent here. We are paying salaries, and there is so much of expenses everyone has. But we also should kind of when we are pricing, also have to kind of think of all these things, and think of whatever if at all we don't get, for whatever reason we don't get enough number of shoots, we should plan our pricing model in such a way that it makes it sustainable over a long period, not just 1 month. Don't live like, that's what I tell everybody. Don't live month on month and say, okay, this month if I am able to make like 20,000, that's enough. Next month I'll think of it next month. You should never think of it that way, because weddings are very seasonal, and you never know what will happen. Like this whole COVID-19 situation is like totally unexpected. So it is extremely important to plan your pricing model in such a way that you are keeping yourself a good amount of buffer, so that you don't feel that pressure of working for peanuts and giving away your service or art for free. So yeah,
I
that's
think, I
the,
think I think what you're saying really makes sense, because it's not only about photography. It's not only about wedding photography. I think this is the way the whole industry, or the whole world, the commercial aspect of the whole world, across all industries and across covering all our lifestyles, beyond wedding also works, is that everything has a price segmentation. And if I want in a particular, I'm a client and I'm wanting to get a particular service or a particular product, the price range is available to me to choose from. But the problem is that none of the good thing about other things is, other aspects, is that they do not really cut down into others' profits by unfair means. But with service industry, this has become kind of a norm that people with mediocre skills, and probably who have even less invested into photography gears, and even their learning part, they try and compete with the superior ones, and they try and cut down into their profit margins, and that hurts everybody.
yes,
That hurts everybody. I think somewhere down the line, some parity has to happen, and
yeah,
I've never believed in this kind of whatever is going on, because this very clearly shows that that we do not believe in our own art that we are
Yeah.
trying to sell, and there is a lot of insecurity that is creeping in.
Yeah.
And so I think what you mentioned is perfect. There is one more question, then I think we'll start winding up. Is one interesting question is by Naveen. What are some of the lessons in business of wedding photography that you have learned along the way? Um, and I would like to add on to that is that, have you seen that because of photography, ever since you got into photography business, you have changed as a person. You have evolved as a person, as an individual.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I mean, uh, yeah. To answer that, yes, I have changed dramatically as a person. I think we learn so many things because as a business person, you interact with so many different kinds of clients. Not every client is the same. So it's very important. One of the lessons that I learned early on is that I need to pick my clients. So I always try and choose clients with whom, who I trust and respect, who trust me and respect me, and with whom I can gel well, so that I can ensure like a smooth, the whole work to be smooth, and the whole chemistry that between us goes well. So this is something I learned pretty later on in my career. So initially, obviously, I was just like anybody else. I thought, okay, if work is coming in, why say no? We did take up shoots from like all sorts of clients, and then we recreated it in many different ways, because there are sometimes certain people, their wavelength doesn't match with yours, or it's not just about your photography or deliverable. It has nothing to do with that. Probably it's just maybe they're disrespectful to women, or maybe they don't make payments on time, and they make all sorts of excuses and things like that. There have been clients in the past where they've said that we're really short of money, we spent a lot on our weddings and things like that, and then I've run into them when I'm shooting another wedding in a 5-star hotel, and I see them partying there. So you meet all sorts of people, and there are some people who might take advantage of a young photographer, who so yeah, life teaches you a lot of lessons. Without getting into like it a lot, I'll just say that it's better to be on a safer side, and create a contract for yourself, so that when you are on the safer side of things, because not everything will go according to plan. Not every client will be the same. Not every client will be nice enough to pay on time, or appreciate your work and things like that. So yeah, so that is one of the things. And second lesson that I've learned is with respect to pricing again, it is extremely important to consider like all aspects, all expenses of your business, and to put in a lot of thought and effort into coming up with a pricing structure. Most people just randomly price based on competition. So it's extremely important to put in a lot of thought into pricing structure, so that you run a sustainable business. So that is the second lesson that business, being a businesswoman, has taught me. Then yeah, so like I said, it has definitely changed me as a person, because there's so much you get to learn, which as an IT professional, I don't think I would have learned all this. I don't think I would have learned to be street smart, or to read people, to understand people, or to be able to figure out whether they are my sort of clients. All this I wouldn't have learned if I was in that sheltered IT professional profession. So yeah, so definitely a lot of things I've learned over the period. And I think in just last maybe 4 to 5 years, mentally, I think I've aged like some 20 years. So
That's quite an interesting thing. I'm stretching it too far, but I think there are a couple of interesting questions. But Monica Singh has been after my live asking that about the pricing part. So she's also asking that what about CSR? I think she's talking about corporate some responsibility, something social responsibility. Does it exist? I'm not aware of, but does it exist in photography as well?
Yeah, of course. Like we do our bit for wherever we can. Like I love working with dogs, so we are. I mean, as a CSR activity, we are planning some activities to help uh, abandoned street dogs and things like that. So I think corporate social responsibility has to be a part of any business. If you are doing well enough to sustain your business, and you're managing a decent profit, you should put in some sort of uh, time and effort towards CSR activities. So that's what I, like I said, I have a dog myself, and I want to work towards betterment of pets. So that's what we are planning. These are the kind of activities that we are planning. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what I would like to add is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that photography industry, especially in India, I'm not aware of outside as well, but it is kind of an unorganized sector. There's no body which is controlling it. So it all boils down to an individual, what he or she wants to do. And I think that comes also after a certain level. When you reach a certain level, and then you start thinking about contributing back to the society and being responsible.
Yeah.
Am I right? Or
Yeah.
because I think we are not. It's not. It's though the word is corporate is attached, but we are not corporates as yet.
Yes.
We are not governed by any guidelines that this is
Yeah.
to be done and this is not to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
it all is based on the individual, and it need not just be like in terms of say you go and donate money as a CSR activity. It's also time and effort that we donate time and again to a lot of maybe photographing for NGOs, or even the this whole series that Jesse, you are doing. It's what you're giving back to the community rather than profiting yourself. It is completely something that you're doing for the community, so that also counts as some sort of CSR activity. Yeah, like you said, it's we are not really a
Yeah,
corporate.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we, I mean,
That's
we,
interesting. Yeah. So,
yeah, we also do so many such free workshops and free live sessions and stuff. This is at the end of the day, it is the limited time that we have on this on this planet, and what we can do out of it, that is our that is our currency. Literally, our time and our skill is our currency. So if we are spending this time and effort towards something without taking a profit out of it, it is like a CSR activity. So so yeah,
absolutely.
like how I mean, it's not like a a well organized, structured corporate initiative, but every photographer, at least all photographers worth their salt, is trying and doing something, trying to help out in some way or the other. So yeah.
I think thank you so much, Neeta. It's been fabulous talking to you. Is it by any chance Varun around?
Yeah, he's around. He's just sitting opposite and watching this whole thing.
Can he just come into the screen? And
Yeah.
we would like to show him if it is possible, if he's
Yeah,
okay with
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
I just
that's
say,
Varun.
Hi, Varun. Good to see you. Good to see you. So, guys, this is your the team that is behind Neeta Shankar Photography, and so before we sign off, just one quick thing. When did you decide, Varun, that now is the time to leave your corporate job and get on with Neeta Shankar Photography as an integral part?
Yeah, so he's asking you her.
yeah. So yeah, it was almost 4 years ago when obviously I had moved up the ladder in the corporate industry, and it was really tough for me to actually take offs, too many off. And we used to have maybe 12 leaves per year, and I can't keep falling sick every now and then, and keep taking sick leaves as well. So finally, because this our company was growing, and we wanted to do something substantial ourselves. And also there is some satisfaction of working for yourself versus working for a big corporate sitting in USA or China or some other place. So it was it was high time. Like 4 years ago, we made a call, and we informed our parents, and both set of parents were a little worried. Final salaried guy also moving out, but it was fine. And they understood. They saw. Now when we work hard, we feel okay. It's that we're working for ourselves, and we don't mind taking that extra 2 hours, extra 4 hours, or even doing a night out doing some work. But especially when in corporate, you keep cursing your bosses unnecessarily, and all those things.
And here, who do you curse? You curse each other and
Yeah.
fight or no?
Oh yeah. You,
Yeah, we fight a lot.
we have our creative differences.
Yeah, that is the right word. We have our creative differences, and there are always difference of opinion in the way we want to shape the business. But that's like a small thing. But I think one reason this is working out really well is we know that a single person cannot really handle wedding photography projects all on their own and manage a whole business on their own. It's impossible, especially because weddings are like so chaotic, and there's so much happening, and there's so much pressure. It's always good to have a support system. So I think maybe I forgot to mention that, like when you were asking like how do you remain calm, I think one of the reason is because he's around. I know that okay, in case I miss something, he'll be there to get it. So I have that support system in place, so I can remain calm because of that. And looking at
And
him, you
that's
can tell
interesting.
he's always calm.
I think I can vouch for at least, because I've met and I've been associated with them. We've traveled together as well to Ladakh, and they're a fabulous team, guys. And I think fights and difference of opinions are only for betterment of the company and their future growth. And I think that's what they are trying to do. And thank you, Varun, to even accepting to come out and at least we can look at you now.
It's always a pleasure talking to you,
team.
Jesse. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Always. Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Neeta. Thank you for again being here and sharing your knowledge, and we've really tried to extract maximum out of you. And there are some questions left, and I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to stretch it further. I know how difficult, and I'm really scared. Everything is gone. The current is right now gone. 2 Wi-Fi's are not working since afternoon. 2 data packs are giving me trouble. So I managed to pull it off, and I don't want it to end abruptly. So I think we will say goodbye, and thank you so much again, and continue inspiring all of us, and let's all stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on board. It was a really fabulous session. Great questions, and thanks to all the viewers also who are watching and asking questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jesse. Bye.
Bye.